right, the recording has started and the meeting has started. Good morning, everybody. My name is Luke Thornton, and I am your WebEx host for the Seniors Council of Douglas County meeting in April. Some technical things to talk about first. If you have a question, please drop it into the chat box. You can see a little speech bubble down at the bottom right. If you click that, open up the chat box. Send those to me directly. You can click the 2 and get the drop down and then select host, and then that will send questions to me directly. And that will keep us from speaking all over each other. Also, for today's meeting, we request that you choose a specific layout for your video. If you hover your mouse over the video and see in the top right corner something that says layout, please click that and select stage. We believe this will be the best way for you to see the presentation with the panelists today. So without any further ado or boring technical stuff, I will pass this over to Gretchen Lopez.
Seniors Council of Douglas County. My name is Gretchen Lopez, and I have the honor of serving as the Seniors Council's chair. To begin, I'd like to thank Douglas County and our county commissioners for their support by providing the technical assistance we need to make our virtual meetings available to you. You've met Luke, and he will be with us throughout the meeting as our tech expert. So let's start with some brief announcements. Last month, the Seniors Council began circulating a questionnaire to gather information about how COVID has impacted the lives of older adults living in Douglas County. The data we collect will be presented to our local decision makers in order to identify areas in which service programs may need to be expanded or new programs introduced. It will also help us to develop initiatives to meet the changing needs of our 60 and older population and advocate on your behalf. So thank you to those who already completed our online questionnaire. And for those of you who haven't yet had the chance to do so, please help us out by using this address to add your comments. And Luke is putting up that information. Now that's a long address there, and if you'd rather not worry about memorizing that, just email us at dcseniorlife@douglas.co.us and we'll send you the link. That's the easiest way to do it. And this questionnaire will only take about 1 or 2 minutes to complete. It's basically a checklist, so it's very easy and convenient for you to use. Your input is invaluable in identifying the programs most beneficial to our community members and the areas where we can help. So we're asking for your help so that we can help others. Now, the Parker Senior Center's fundraiser, Shoe Us the Love, is ongoing until April 30th, all month. They're collecting gently used and new footwear like slippers, shoes, and boots for men, women, and children to be sent to aspiring entrepreneurs in third world countries such as Haiti. And there's their logo there. Donations can be dropped off at the Parker Senior Center, located at 10675 Longs Way in Parker. I'll repeat that. That's 10675 Longs Way in Parker. Or for those of you who live in the Castle Rock area, as I do, I can come by your home to pick up your donations and take them to the Parker Senior Center for you. So there's my personal information. You can text me a note. Let me know if you have some donations and your address. I'll come by. You can set them out on the porch, or you can email me at my email address there, and we'll figure something out. Next on our agenda is a look at our upcoming educational presentations and introductions to today's panel by our education chair, Tiffany Curtin. Tiffany, it's all yours.
Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us for another Senior Council presentation meeting. So today we'll be hearing from 3 entrepreneurs from our community, and to tell you about their experience as starting their business later in life, and how that has been meaningful for them, and how that has been their challenges and experiences. To follow next month on May 6th, we will be hearing from Colby Galston. She's a business services librarian from business analyst librarian at Douglas County Libraries. And we're hoping that some of you might be inspired to get started on starting your own business at this point in life and enjoying your passion and benefiting from it, as our panelists today have. And she'll go over, how you can go ahead and get started with that, make it a less scary experience than it might seem if you're just entertaining the idea. It doesn't have to be a big business, doesn't have to be a large corporation, but even if you're looking at maybe starting an Etsy page to share your crafts and to use that. And then on June 3rd, we will be hearing from Elijah Valdez from Wish of a Lifetime. And if you haven't heard about Wish of a Lifetime, it's a really exciting opportunity to help older adults connect and enjoy and fulfill some of their dreams. And you can nominate people who are older adults and helping them connect and enjoy that fulfill one of their wishes. And so very excited about introducing you all to Elijah Valdez on June 3rd. And on the first Thursday in July, we'll be hearing from Barb Lotz, who will be talking about aging with dignity. And so that's our next 3 months of presentations that are coming up. And right now, I would like to introduce our panelists. This is our first panel doing the virtual senior council meetings. So, which is why we've asked you to, or recommended that you set your view at the layout stage. So, first up, we will be hearing from Lisa Appleton from Achord Strings, and she is also an author. And she's also an author of a coloring book, Wolves of the Sky. She plays in the violoncello duo, Apples and Honey, and she will be speaking about her experience in using her musical talents and in setting up her business that she's been operating. And next we will be hearing from Sue Griggs. I love her title that she sent to me as Artist Whisperer and Business Director of Steve Griggs Watercolor. And then we will be hearing from Denise Grills, who has been using her life experience and wisdom in setting up Denise Grills Coaching and Consulting. And so she has a lot of experience and wisdom in helping people with starting their own businesses as well. So a lot of expertise in this panel today. I will be asking the questions. I have a set of 4 questions that I'm asking our panelists today, and I will be asking them to respond in the order that we have introduced them each time. So let's go ahead and get started with our first question, which is, and so Lisa will be addressing this first question, be the first one to address the question. So, which is, Lisa, or panelists, please describe the business that you own, when you started it, and what your previous career was, and why you decided to start this business.
Great, thank you, Tiffany. I'm Lisa Appleton, and I'm a music teacher. So I have been teaching music since 1990, but it's always been in a school setting. So last March, at the beginning of March 2020, I gave notice at my school. I said I'm going to finish out the school year, and then I'm going to launch my own independent music studio. So I teach violin, viola, and cello, but it's always been through a school setting. So my students were provided by the school, and then I would either conduct the orchestra or teach private lessons or do all of that. So I decided last spring, because my daughter's schedule gets crazy, she's a junior in high school, and I kind of needed to be around a little more, that it would be nice to have the flexibility to teach at a studio. So of course, everything got shut down in mid-March. Everything changed. So it's been a pretty amazing process to watch how this works. One of the constraints that I had been working with is that schools already had scheduling challenges, public and private. I've worked in the private sector and for public schools. And what I found was that in both settings, music was just getting squished into smaller time slots. So I was really excited to go ahead and start my own studio and have my own curriculum as well. So I really needed flexibility for my daughter, and leading to more time with my students in a different setting seemed like a really positive thing. So that's when it all started, was last March, and then the pandemic has really forced a lot of changes, of course, as I've gone through this.
Great. Thank you, Lisa. Next, we'll hear from Sue Griggs.
Hi, I am Sue Griggs. Can you hear me okay? Okay, great. Yeah, the Artist Whisperer title is one that I assigned myself. So I thought that probably most adequately described my role. But my husband, Steve, is a watercolor artist. He's it's a very unique style, a very masterful watercolor artist. And we started Steve Griggs Watercolor, which he does the painting and teaching, and I do all of the business aspects of our company. We started that in early 2017. This had been a dream of ours we met in college, so we've been together for a really long time, and he was an art student when we were in college and had always dreamed of being a professional artist, but we couldn't quite pull it all together for many years, had kids, you know, all of the concerns about whether or not you can make a living as an artist and those kinds of things. So it was always a dream. And we had always thought, our thought process had been that I would be the breadwinner and Steve would be a full-time artist. And then, you know, income wouldn't make so much difference. But I began to notice that probably much later than I should have, that Steve really loves to paint and he really loves to explore his art, but he does not like to do self-promotion. So it came to my attention at one point, especially with social media, that if we were going to do this and Steve was going to be in charge of it, nothing would ever happen. We'd have stacks and stacks of beautiful paintings in our house, but nobody would ever see them. So I left my career. I was in higher education administration, worked for the University of Denver for a while, worked for Regis University for a while, doing some adjunct teaching, as well as some overall administrative kind of work for higher education. I left that at the end of 2016 and decided that we were going to start this watercolor business, that was something we had dreamed of. And my challenge to Steve was at the time that we're going to start this. And the goal is to he was still working full-time in the design world. And the goal was, we're going to get you so busy that you have to either quit your job or quit art, but we're going to, and I managed that. And so in 2018, October of 2018, he left his full-time career and we launched into full-time Steve Griggs Watercolor together. And it's been a ride. It's been fun and it's had its ups and downs, but we're having a blast. So.
Thank you, Sue. And now let's turn this question over to Denise. Tell us about your business and why you started.
Hello, everybody. My business is Denise Griggs Coaching and Consulting. I have been working with clients who look for change or growth. And my offer to them is that I'll help find clarity for what you want, the courage to ask for it, and the tools to be successful. I'm very new at this. I started in the first quarter of 2020. So I hope in 3 years to be like Sue and come back and tell you more, but I'm really just getting started. I have had 35 years in high tech development, marketing, sales, and management, but always at, IBM, Oracle, big companies. As these things go, I was a vice president of development, and I was part of reduction in force, or as we know, a layoff, in early 2020. And, that's always kind of both sides. I had the opportunity then to take a severance package, which was sizable because I'd been there for a while, and think about what I wanted to do, which was a gift. And of course, it was, let me tell you again, early 2020. So I was going to travel, do consulting, wait for the big job offers to come in. And of course, none of that happened, very quickly. So I had some time on my hands. I started surveying my mentors and friends, and they said, why aren't you coaching? You're always, I volunteer doing that. I love working with in particular with women. I was doing a lot of work with women leadership as a volunteer. And so I started looking into coaching. I started a year-long program in the largest coaching training organization in the world, Coactive Training Institute, and I'm almost finished with that. I'm taking my final exam next week. That's what I did. I started doing that. I'm just building it up slowly, but I did do a lot of research, and I can share some of that startup research with you today. So if you want to, go to the next question. Sorry.
Thank you. Sorry, I was just unmuting myself to get to the next question.
Okay.
Just took
the third one.
Extra click on that. So our second question that we have for our panelists is, what was the biggest challenge that you encountered in starting and maintaining a business later on in life, and how did you overcome it?
So for me, I have spent a lot of time in a practice room with a wooden instrument that's 500 years old. And so the technology doesn't change a lot. The way that I run my business hasn't changed a lot. You tune the instruments, you play. I still have my clients pay me with a checkbook or cash. And so for me, definitely the biggest challenge since last March has been the technology. So for finishing my job last year at my school, we went fully remote in March. And so that was absolutely terrifying because I hadn't even really gotten comfortable with the email system at school. And then all of a sudden now we're doing Zoom meetings and everything is through the computer. So it felt really, really foreign to me just because I hadn't done that before, any of it. So the way that I overcame it is just, I just plunged in. I had to remain flexible, and really it's interesting to see how, and I think this has affected all of us. Of course, the pandemic's affected everybody, but then turning that pandemic setting from something that's inhibiting to something that's positive. So I had never heard of Zoom before March of last year. And so now, since then, I've hosted 3 Zoom recitals for my kids where they've performed on Zoom. And there are some amazing advantages to that, in that I don't have to find a performance venue like an auditorium or something, which is always expensive. And we had people tune in from all over the country to see their grandkids or nieces and nephews perform. So that was really inspiring to see people from all over the country tune in. And we've had a lot of fun just because as the pandemic has continued, we are all experiencing a little Zoom fatigue. So I always try and build something fun in for the kids as they're performing, because it is stressful for them to perform on Zoom. It's a different way to interact with people, but you're still holding your instrument in front of a crowd, and it's still difficult. So I partnered with Nature's Educators, and they do education about birds in the natural environment. So we had them join our Zoom event, and they have a cockatoo that loves music. So this cockatoo tuned in and danced while the kids played their songs, and they had the camera right on him. It was super cute, and it was really fun. And I think it alleviated some of the tension for the kids to have that sort of focus. So we've done that. And then we did a ugly Christmas sweater Zoom recital. So the kids could just, glam up. And so the focus is a little bit more on the clothing and the glam. And then they got to share their pets in the last recital that we did. And in conjunction with that, we did a fundraiser for the local Humane Society, and that kids brought in extra dog food and cat food and blankets and leashes and stuff. And it was called for the Love of Fuzzy Friends Zoom recital. So we were able to work as a community to help a nonprofit, and it gave a focus for the recital that I think was really fun, and I think the kids had a good time. So it's taking that terrifying technology that's been really hard for me and turning it into something positive and finding a way, to have the kids have ownership as well. So that's really been the focus and how I overcame my technology frights. So thank you.
So I'll go next. In terms of challenges, I think there are a couple of different challenges. The first and foremost being sort of like Lisa alluded to, just sort of some abject terror that we wouldn't succeed. And, we're starting something pretty late in life, and if we don't succeed, what happens? So there was certainly some tension around that. The other thing is that the art world is really very competitive. There are a million artists out there, wonderful artists, who want to get noticed. And so it is really tricky and challenging to get noticed. And you have to be pretty creative, and you have to be pretty tenacious. And then the other thing, and Steve isn't here to hear this, but I know he would agree with this, that sometimes just his own insecurity about whether or not his art is good enough and that kind of thing, and having to really overcome and keep pushing him in the direction of, no, we're going to do this. Like, we've talked about this for our whole lives. We're going to do this. So I think those three challenges, just maybe they all combine into one, just like sort of a fear of lack of success. And the only way that I knew to do it was just to, like Lisa said, just forge ahead. So when I left my job at the end of 2016, starting into 2017, Steve had been showing in shows, and people locally knew a little bit about him, but people would ask, do you have a website? And he never did. And we had spoken to a web developer, but it was a little out of our price range previously to do anything with that. So I said, well, the first thing we need is a website. And if we can't afford somebody to do it, I'm going to do it. And Steve said, you don't know how to build a website. And I said, well, I'm going to learn. And, just using a template, there are lots of templates out there that you can build a website. And then just jumping in with both feet, contacting magazines and saying, hey, I know this great artist. Do you want to do an article about him? Contacting galleries and just saying, hey, I know this great artist. Do you want to represent him? And I could do that because I was looking at it really from a business, whereas Steve was really looking at it from his personal sort of soul on paper. And so, so the biggest challenge, I think, really was just fear of not being able to be successful. And the way to deal with it was just to go headlong into it and just say, we're going to do this. It was sort of a sink or swim, and we financially couldn't afford to not do it. So, so it was just kind of jump right in.
Oh, great advice. I'm learning from this too. I think the biggest challenge for me, particularly after being part of always, very large corporations where I had teams of people to hand off work to, was just, being the sole owner with no staff. And my motto became, if it's to be, it's up to me. You do need to set up some systems. There's really not a lot to do legally, but you have to do that. And things like, accounting, billing, website, Sue just said, I used Wix and set it up myself. And I think Sue has a good point. People want you to have a website, whether they actually go look at it or how much they look at it, certainly with art, that's huge. But you have to do that. But that was fairly easy to do. So I went basic. Sales was for me the hardest part because I helped sales and global sales, but this was me and having to start to ask for money. It actually wasn't as hard for me maybe on the consulting side, which I originally was going to do because of my experience, because this was new. Coaching, I kind of started off small. So what did I do? For business systems, I went pretty simple to start with. Because I worked in technology, I love applications. So I started with, just very basic. You can do some trials on QuickBooks and, some other systems. And I did that, but pretty much I kept a spreadsheet because my business isn't that complicated. I don't have inventory, that kind of thing. So I kept a spreadsheet because I'm just starting out, but I will be going to a business system, as we go. You do have to get paid. I use PayPal, for example. But you can see some information on that from Douglas County. I wrote an article that was in the newsletter, but it was print. But it's just full of links on how, what I found out and some places to go for some of this. So they're going to make it available on the Douglas County, I think, Facebook site, but it's also at my website, denisegrilsconsulting.com/blogs, denisegrilsconsulting/blogs. So a lot of those services, to start, they're free, or, you can say one employee and it's not that expensive. For messaging and marketing, that's something I had a lot of experience with, but at corporate. So I did work on that. There's some great templates as well at ARP has some, the SBA. So, you really have to get going on your marketing messaging when you're starting new. But now that I've done that work, I can tailor. I'll do a redo of my website, an update, and then I can start tailoring more to that. For sales, somewhat, I did this year-long program, but I did have to have 100 hours of coaching, and some of it had to be paid. So I was forced to do that, but I got some assistance. I just started off, very low in price and asked, said to people, I'm just getting started. Can I work with you and practice? And that's how I'm starting, but, just getting in there. I am going to, when I certify, give myself a raise and, also be more aggressive in that. But, and I think that the last thing is just use your resources. Don't, you'll get as soon as you register, like you register for an LLC, you get all kinds of mailings and stuff. Be very careful of that. There's a lot of fraud. Like you get these things like you have to fill this out or you have to do this or pay for that. Be very careful of that. You'll get a lot of marketing stuff. And I would say use those free resources in the librarians and you'll be very pleased. So yeah, there we go. So next question.
Thank you for those insights. So our next question here is, what are the rewards of running your own business at this point in your life? For example, how does this bring you joy in running your own business? We'll start with Lisa again.
My own and my students' creativity as well. So because I'm able to select my own music and build my own curriculum, I find my students enjoy and input with that. They let me know what kind of music they like, and it really becomes a partnership as we move forward in their educational process. So as I hope to build my business, I will offer private lessons, violin, viola, and cello, and then we'll move into small chamber groups so the kids get to play together. weather permitting, on May 1st, we're planning a round-a-palooza in the park by the studio where the kids get to play outside, and we'll play a set of music that we've worked on and the kids have helped me select. So it's nice. It's a safe setting in the pandemic. It's really fun to play outside. Just gives the kids a different kind of outlet. I found that providing an atmosphere for them, especially during the pandemic, has been really important. So I went ahead and rented a larger studio because my old studio was tiny and I was really concerned that we really weren't social distancing. So I rented a large studio so I can have a small chamber group in this studio space, and we can social distance, the kids wear masks, all of that. So I've also really worked to make it super inviting. I have lots of plants and I have a lot of warm lighting, and it's cute because the kids kind of hang out. They kind of don't want to leave, and it's nice. And so because I know a lot of them have either been online or going to school is really stressful for some of them right now. I'm really trying to create a safe place in that they come and they play music and it's a healing area for them to be in. So being creative even with that and creating the space has been really exciting. And another benefit really has been the flexibility for me being around for my family. And, you know, especially since my daughter was remote the first semester of the school year, it was super helpful for me to have flexibility in my scheduling. So being able to balance my business and being a mom gives me a lot of joy. So, you know, the creativity and then being around for my daughter, the two things have worked really well. And I do find that very joyful, even in a pandemic. So thank you.
I think this question, I'll try not to occupy all of the time that we have answering this question, because I think there are so many things that bring joy in this. And I think going back to what I originally was talking about. So Steve and I, we met in college at Michigan State University, and he was an art student. And I don't think we had a dream at that point that we would have a business like this. I don't think that was on our radar, but getting his art out into the world was something that was really important to us. And so seeing the fulfillment of that dream of so many years, and while we were raising our kids, we talked about doing this. And again, it didn't look the way that it looks now, but it was still something that we really dreamed about. And I believed in his art. Like, he just does his work so beautiful. And I really believed in that. And so when it kind of came around and we realized that this was a team process, that this was a team effort, and we started it as such, there's a huge amount of sort of fulfillment in that. And we just do this together and we have a blast. And again, I don't know that Steve could promote himself the way I can promote him, but I believe, you know, you can't sell a product you don't believe in, right? And so I totally believe in this. And so there's that piece of it. And then I think the other piece is we've been able to see our own children. So our children are all grown now, but we've been able to see our own children sort of broaden their perspective or their horizons on what's possible in terms of what I want to do with my life and my career. So I think that's been really special for us as well. And then for us, the relationship building part of this has just been amazing. And Steve has been teaching, and we develop friendships with people and relationships with people that take his classes over and over and over because they want to learn his style, and it's not easy. And so we are able to build relationships. People relate to his art in such a way, there's a real emotional connection there. And so we're able to really build relationships with people literally all over the world. And that's super important. And it feels like Steve has a gift, and that we can kind of put that back out into the world. And that's just something really important. So one really brief story that I want to share, just because it's so fresh, is he had a painting. He was asked to do a painting of a fly fisherman from a person who was a fly fisherman. And so he sometimes gets asked to do commissions. And when he's asked to do that, he'll do a series of paintings on that subject, and the person can choose whichever one they like best. So there was a piece that he did of a fly fisherman, And I had contacted Griggs Sporting Journal, which is a beautiful publication. And I had contacted them a year or so ago and asked, because they feature artwork, sporting artwork in their magazine, and heard back at the beginning of this year, and they said, oh, one of your fly fishing paintings we'd like to use in our March issue. So cool, that sounds great. They put it in the front back cover of their issue. And a couple of days ago, we got an email from a man in Austin, Texas, who said, I saw this painting in Griggs Sporting Journal, and I keep coming back to it. And it's a beautiful painting, but there's something more that I keep coming back for. And he said, I've started having dreams. This is kind of crazy, but he said, I'm starting to have dreams about my father, who's been dead for several years. But he said that painting, it feels like it's my father doing this fly fishing. And he said, the crazy thing about it is my father wasn't a fly fisherman, but he said, I look at that painting and I see my father smiling and joyfully fly fishing. And he's like, can I buy it? Well, of course, yes, of course you can buy it. But it was also just this really cool story about how that art brought him to this place. It really evoked something in him. And that's one of the things we find, that so many people say that Steve's paintings will move them. They know exactly where the place is. It may have not at all be what Steve intended when he painted it, but I know exactly where that is. And I have these great memories about it, and I want to buy it and hang it in my home because it reminds me. There's just that the rewards in that are just phenomenal. So way more joy than trial, even though we're not without trials, but way more joy in the process of doing this business and what it means to other people.
Oh my gosh, Sue, I can see why you're a great marketeer. That's an amazing story. And, you know, ultimately my business is about transformation. And that's really the main joy, and what, you know, I was drawn to is working with folks and drawing out, you know, their next best life, I guess. Other than that, like, I think we've all talked about freedom, you know, definitely, especially if you work for a large company or you work for anybody, right? You are at the strategy of that company. So, you know, going through having to lay off people or strategy changing or whatever, you know, having your own business isn't easy, but it's all your decision. So I enjoy that. Flexibility is also huge. Our kids are grown as well, but, you know, if I want to work Saturday and Sunday or have clients, I have been skiing on Monday and Wednesday, which, you know, we Coloradans know is really great. And so I can do that. We also, the flexibility like to coach on Zoom has been great because I'm not limited geographically. So I can, you know, I have a client in Florida and I have a client in Hawaii. So I'm not tied into that. So, you know, definitely that is the most fun. You know, and you do have to work a lot, but, you know, I'm also a night owl, so I can work at night. I'm not really a morning person. I like to work out in the morning, so you can arrange your schedule that way. That's been very helpful. I think especially for seniors too, if you have any mobility issues, or, you know, you have to, you know, have some self-care, you can set your own schedule. You don't have to be sort of at the whims of your employer. So I think that's great, you know, for seniors. And as we age, you know, I could do this job for 20 more years. And, you know, I have a mentor that is in her late 70s and coaching and leading and, you know, just having a great time. That was not what I thought I would be doing. I thought I would, you know, finish at 65 at a big company and retire, and that would be it. And I probably would have been very bored. So, yeah, so I'll send it back for the next question.
So our next question, which is the final official question that I'll be asking, and then after our panelists address this question from me, we will be opening it up for the participants in the audience to ask questions of our panelists. So the final question that I have for you all is, what advice would you give to someone who is considering starting their own business? Starting with Lisa.
Thank you. So my advice would be, do your best to remain flexible. So my main instrument is violin, and that is great. It's a pretty popular instrument. People like it. But I have been able to get, 20% of my students actually playing viola and cello, which is great because then I can fulfill that need that I am hoping to get a small orchestra started for chamber work. Then you've got those low voices. So all of that is really good, but it also means that I needed to practice viola and cello because I haven't taught that in a while. So I had to be flexible in that, okay, well, violin's easy, but the viola and cello I have to work at a little bit. So it's really meeting the need of your consumer. So I have a funny story. We used to live close to an ice cream shop, and this was years ago. And the ice cream shop became a coffee shop when that all became the rage. And they had this huge sign up that said, "We do not sell ice cream." And it was unfriendly. And they went out of business rather rapidly. So I thought it was interesting that they didn't look around or heed the call of customers coming in and asking for ice cream. I thought that was an interesting tack to take. So really thinking about what your consumer or what your client is looking for. Are they looking for viola lessons instead of violin lessons? Are they looking for ice cream instead of coffee? So I think really thinking that way can help you lead, with a larger hand and offer more to your clients. So I think that's interesting. And being willing to work out of your comfort zone. And I think in a way, we've all done that just naturally this year because the pandemic has pushed all of us to do things differently, whether it's ordering groceries or having to get on Zoom that we haven't done before. So taking the momentum of the pandemic is not necessarily a bad thing and moving forward with that. So what new skills do you have because of the pandemic, and how can you take that forward if you're thinking about doing your own business? So I think this has been skill building for all of us, whether or not we've been happy about it, but it has been skill building. And then my third piece of advice is just do what you can to simplify your personal expenses. So you're always starting a new business, you're gonna run into issues where, oh, that was a little bit more expensive than I thought it would be, or I'm gonna feel less pressure if I can have a simpler lifestyle. So I think that's really helpful. When I had to rent my bigger studio, it was 6 times more expensive than I had been paying for my previous rent. Luckily, I had students right away who came in and filled up that difference. But if we had been really on the wire at home and I was looking to make this studio change, I think that would have been so much more stressful. So, we drive older cars and we enjoy thrift shopping. And, so we use that kind of lifestyle in order to work for the joy of being self-employed and having our own business. So, that's been really helpful as we've moved forward through this. And, my family agrees and they're okay with that, luckily. So, so kind of work on it together. So that's my 3 main thoughts.
I would echo all of those from Lisa. I think all of that is very true. Certainly being flexible, we all have our COVID stories, right? But Steve was teaching for the Art Students League of Denver he had taught for several years, but last spring when COVID happened, he was teaching at the Pace Center in Parker. And literally, he taught a class, and I think it was a day or 2 later when everything shut down. Well, that's a primary source of income for us. So we were like, okay, now what? All of the galleries where Steve had artwork shut down. So we were sort of like, well, this is an interesting little challenge. And of course, everybody faced a huge number of challenges at that time. But it was really about being flexible, like Lisa said, just learning from that and going, well, okay, what do we have to do differently? And what was interesting is we had talked about trying to create an online class that Steve could teach because people really like to try to learn his style of painting. So I kept saying, we need to do it online. We need to do online. It just wasn't ever a priority until suddenly it was, right? And so then it became a priority, and we developed an online class and started doing that online with Art Students League, and then branched out to just doing our own class that we were teaching on Zoom. And we've had people literally from around the world who are taking Steve's classes now that we would never have had the opportunity to reach. So it really is about kind of just going with the flow. And so I think that's really primary. But I think the other thing that I really think is important, and I would encourage anybody who's going into business for themselves to do, is every year at the end of the year, I do a reporting. I came from the business world too. I did a lot in higher ed, but I also came from the business world. So, you know, reporting out and doing annual report kind of stuff and all that was a part of my past world. So I always sit down and do sort of a quote unquote annual report. And I list out what we've accomplished, what we've done over this past year. And it's always an amazing thing. We sit down over a cup of coffee and we talk about all the things we've accomplished in the last year, some that we'd planned on, like we always plan for the year, but then something's just happened, right? There's just an evolution. And being able to sit down and look at that list and review it and then say, okay, from here, now where do we want to go? But year to year, looking at that list is really an amazing thing and very encouraging for us. So I would encourage anybody starting a business to really do that. Set your goals for sure, but also reflect back on, wow, what more did we do? Or what didn't we do? Because sometimes I had a goal of having Steve in 10 galleries by the end of 2020. Well, you know, as much as we were able to teach online, doing things because of COVID, getting into galleries wasn't really one of those things that we were going to be able to do. And, you know, again, all of us had so many changes, but being able to look back and say, okay, we didn't accomplish this goal. Why not? And what might we do differently to accomplish it? Or is it not a goal that we really want anymore? All of that process, but really that reflection, I think, is a super important. Planning is important, but the reflection is important as well.
And now to Denise.
I was so fascinated by that and taking notes. Great advice. So I'll just bring up a couple other things. I think, you know, to get started, there again, great templates on ARP, SBA, you know, use those resources, but researching the competition is where you start, and going in, like, what's your offering. I spent a lot of time on that because coaching itself is not a regulated profession. So you don't have to have any licensing. There was a while where it kind of got a bad name, like a lifestyle coach was not, kind of sounded a little interesting. But so that's why I decided to do professional certification. But within that, you know, what are my offerings? And that has changed and sort of grown, and I think will continue to. But so that, you know, that's definitely, we want to look at what you have, what your pricing is, who else is doing it, how can you be different. And then the other thing is just network. And so I spent, you know, a few months as I was starting training, and we went to COVID, and I would, you know, LinkedIn was great for me. I have a very large LinkedIn network, and that, you know, so as soon as I changed to CEO Denise Grills, I just got so many, you know, people coming in and wanting to see what they could do to help me. So that was great. And those folks also introduced, like, you should talk to this person, and then you should talk to that person, who became a really valuable advisor. So I think don't be shy about that. Like, don't be shy about just reaching out to people and like, hey, this is what I'm doing. Do you have any advice? Or I'd like to do what you would like to do. And I found, you know, Facebook groups for, you know, my coaching profession certification, and they are very generous and also refer to each other. Like, I don't do this kind of coaching. Anybody want to talk to this person or whatever? So networking is huge, and it's, you know, it's free, really. It's just a great thing to do. As we do open up, I know there will be, you know, different things we can do. Sue just mentioned that, you know, like she couldn't do galleries, but, you know, there'll be some different things we can do. But I would really say take advantage of social media and just networking. Pick up the phone and call people. And the last thing on that, on networking, goes both ways. you want to be just checking in with people. What are they doing? What can I do for you? And then when you come back and just say, like I've said to people, hey, can I practice coach on you? Or, when they ask me what they can do to help, or, if you talk to anybody that, you think could benefit from my services, will you give me a buzz? So, but make sure it's both ways. And then if somebody does give you a referral, it's just common sense, but everybody's busy. Make sure you go back and thank them and let them know what happened, even if it didn't work out. Like, hey, it didn't work out, but I appreciate the opportunity. And, if anything comes up, let me know. Because I also heard that from a lot of people, like they help a lot of people and they never hear how it comes out. So network and follow up would be the last thing. Okay, and that's back to Tiffany.
Excellent. So thank you so much for all of these insights that all of the panelists have been giving today. And I'm coming away with this feeling very inspired myself. And if you are one of our audience members and you did not attend last month's presentation from Janine Vanderberg about changing the narrative, I think that it would be a good one to go back and check, as everything that we're talking about today really does help us change the narrative and show the power and the relevance of older adults working on and continuing with your dreams and expanding, and the value in your community, and just so inspirational in this really challenging year that so many of us have had. I think this is really a great presentation to have following 2020 to end the first quarter of 2021. So I do want to invite everybody, the people in the audience, to ask your questions that you might have for any or all of the panelists. You can use the hand raise feature, or you can type in the chat box and Luke will read your questions out loud for our panelists. So I'll give you a second to think about your questions and go ahead, and we'll let you unmute if you choose to raise your hand.
Nothing coming through yet. Again, if you have a question, please drop it in the chat box or raise your hand and I'll call on you. If you're looking for the hand raising function, it's down at the very bottom right corner. Mary, I have unmuted you.
Thank you. My husband and I are thinking about starting an internet business. He has a specific skill, and I guess maybe since you all have your own businesses and whatnot, where do I begin to learn how to start an internet business?
Can I jump in?
Yes.
Can you give us a little more information, Mary, about what kind of business? Like, what is he? You're selling a product, correct?
No, it's a service. He has
Okay.
a particular skill that is requires he's a commercial estimator.
Okay.
And a lot of the companies that he knows of, and that when they get very busy, they outsource their estimation to businesses around the country. And obviously he doesn't want to work for one of those businesses that are outsourced he'd rather just do it himself and put his name out there so they would contact him.
So Denise, maybe you might be better equipped to answer this because you use LinkedIn a lot more than I do. We've used it a little, but it isn't necessarily the most appropriate thing for our business. But I would think LinkedIn might be a great place to start. What do you think?
Yeah, you could. Yeah, I'm thinking, obviously first, your research, Mary, sounds like you'd probably go to those companies and say, what would you think about this? And maybe look at pricing and doing that. On LinkedIn, there's always LinkedIn is free, but you can go to a more priority membership and check in with them where a premier, where you get more access to, particular firms, and you can get actual, the people, here are the people that work there and all that, 'cause it sounds like you have your basic, like starting folks and do that and do that. And you could even do some advertising on that. So I would say start that. I definitely, Mary, would go to have you gone to the SBA info or?
We have just begun the thought process on this.
Good.
I don't even know if we need a business license to do internet work.
Yes.
We don't know where we would find that information out.
Yeah, you probably need, if you start a business, at least to file with the state. But so if you go to any of those sites, like AARP, I don't think you even have to be a member, is really good. Go to the Small Business Administration. And if you get that, I have links to those, but if you go in that article that they're going to post to, but I would go to those and get a meeting with, Small Business Administration and get a counseling session. But they have great information. It's pretty inexpensive. I don't know, guys, like $150 to start. You have to register with the state and then you pay a little bit every year, but that's all on those sites to get going. But I would definitely work with them. Yeah, think about LinkedIn, and then you can, do things like set up, a Facebook account and that kind of thing. But for my business, I met with a counselor and he was like, do LinkedIn or Instagram. So Instagram is more up and coming right now, but it kind of depends on your industry. But I would start with those, and it's great that you're doing your research and getting going. It sounds like you have a great market niche, because if he's well known and does that, and you just start reaching out to to those accounts that are busy, and usually just say, can we just ask you for some time to talk about this idea? It's amazing how helpful people are. But good luck. If I can help in any way, yeah, I would be happy to.
Thank you for that information.
Yeah. And Mary, this is Tiffany. I'm also with Douglas County Libraries. And I do want to encourage you to tune in next month when Colby Galston, our business analyst librarian, speaks, and we'll kind of talk about some of those steps in getting started with starting up your own business. And so hopefully you'll be able to tune in next month. And if you're not available on Thursday, it will also be recorded, as all of our presentations are recorded and put on our YouTube channel. So kind of save the date on your calendar for next month.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but do I find these presentations through the Douglas County website then?
Through the Seniors Council. Yes, you can.
Seniors Council.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. And okay. Any other questions coming in? Or even just comments, conversation before we end today. Well, before we go back to Gretchen, and it's okay to still pop your hand up if you need, Valerie Robson, who is one of our senior council members, just piped into the chat box as well with some of the information for making sure you have the information for each of our meetings on the monthly basis. So check the chat box if you need that information, if this is your first time attending our meetings. But I just want to personally thank our panelists today for your time and sharing your stories and your joy. And I'm feeling completely inspired myself and feeling great about 2021, just having listened to all of your stories, and wishing you all the best success. And I think I want to turn it back to Gretchen now.
Can I real quickly do an unabashed plug?
Yeah.
If you have access to Denver Life magazine, the May issue should be coming out relatively soon. You'll see an article about Steve. So they had a really nice article in that issue. So look for Denver Life.
Thank you. Thank you. It seems as if each of you have a different element of creativity that you folded into your business, which I've really found fascinating. That creative part of your brain, you're applying in different ways. So that's really a wonderful thing. And your experiences on becoming your own bosses, yes, are very, very inspiring. And I can see that the choice that you've made is rewarding for each one of you in many different ways. And hopefully some of our listeners will consider this option as well. Really terrific stories. Thank you so very much. And as Tiffany mentioned, our next month's presentation by Colby is going to be a good sequel, if you will, with the inspiration we receive from the three of you to those who are considering it. Where do you start? Like Mary was saying, where do I start? Where do I go? So that'll be a wonderful kind of preview into resources. And that, again, as Tiffany mentioned, is Thursday, May 6th at 10 o'clock. We always start at 10 o'clock. So that should be a very enlightening session. And I'm going to ask Luke to show the slide where our website, email, and Facebook information is. Tiffany also mentioned we record all of our meetings. And if you'd like to listen to today's panel presentation again, or any of our previous presentations, please visit our webpage, mydugcoseniorlife.com, and encourage your friends and family members to tune in as well. I mean, you don't necessarily have to be an older adult to receive the benefit of all the wonderful information and the experiences our panel has offered, and our previous speakers as well. So please share all that information. And our electronic newsletter, First Friday Update, will be sent out tomorrow directly to your email address. If you'd like to share your comments on today's meeting or start receiving that newsletter, just reach out to us at dcseniorlife@douglas.co.us. And that includes our panel members. There's no age restriction here, no qualifying age level. If you'd like to receive our newsletter, we have plenty of information about not only upcoming presentations, but some other things that are going on. We're going to be having some events later this year that you might be interested in. So think about receiving that newsletter, and consider placing a comment on our Facebook page. We'd love for you to do that as well. That's My Doug Co Senior Life, or visit our YouTube channel for additional information about the council. So thank you very much, everyone, for sharing your morning with us today. Let's get outside and enjoy that sunshine while we have it. And perhaps spring really is on the way. We'll see how Mother Nature is. And as always, stay healthy and stay connected. Bye-bye for now.
Thank you.
Thank you.